In 2015, we were brought a film that asks challenging questions. What if witches were alive, real, living amongst us in modern-day New York City? What if there was one man who served as a bridge, who fought back the tides of evil within the witch order to allow them to remain existing amongst humans peacefully? What if Vin Diesel had a full head of hair? Questions, so many questions. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are watching The Last Witch Hunter on the Very Movie Podcast. And yes, it is a movie. But is it very movie? Well, there's only one way to find out.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
That doesn't make sense.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
And I will kill you.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
You can't handle the truth!
I see dead people.
Take your stinking paws off me!
You shall not pass!
Damn dirty ape!
Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
Good day, sir!
It's disgusting. Jesus. What's the matter with you?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
What's your favorite scary movie?
The first rule of Fight Club is...
Have you ever seen a grown man naked?
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny!
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world,
I got a bad feeling about this.
she walks into mine.
This is Sparta!
Hello and welcome to the Very Movie Podcast. My name's Ben and I'm joined today by Sam, the Queen of the Dreadlock Tree. Hello, Sam.
Hello.
And Fraser, the 38th Dolan. How are you, Fraser?
Very good.
Excellent. So, this week we watched The Last Witch Hunter. Was it everyone's first time watching The Last Witch Hunter?
I've seen sort of 10 minutes before and turned it off. I basically got to the bit on the plane and cut out there.
Is that the first or second time you watched it for the show?
This was the second time.
Yeah. The show, we had been planning to do this a while back and things happened, we got distracted. So we watched the film without reason before, and then we had to rewatch it for today. So that was good. It's good. It's good to be thorough. How about you, Fraser? Had you seen it before we watched it for the first time for the show?
No, this was on the recommendation. This is the first time I watched it, which ended up being 3 times that I watched it in preparation for this show.
What was the third time?
That was this evening, just before now. The first time was when you talked about this and then left it a week.
Yeah, you were too eager. That's the problem. So, Last Witch Hunter released in 2015. I think the budget was something to the tune of $90 million.
You can tell.
It's a few dollars. Well, you say that. It was very well produced. It was a very well put together film.
That's exactly how I'd want my films described. Very well produced.
Well, the film found its genesis in screenwriter Corey Goodman. He was talking to old Vinny D about his D&D character, which I think was a bit of a homebrew witch hunter character. I think it was a ranger with some magical ability called Melkor. And I can't remember what film they were talking on the set about the character, but that kind of basically led to this screenplay, which was sitting around for a long time waiting to be produced. I think it was on a list of the top 10 best unproduced scripts of 2010 or something. So it's been in the works for quite a while. And yeah, then it got made and released in 2015. It made just shy of $150 million at the box office, but was panned by critics.
God.
You're nodding. Why are you nodding?
Why do you think?
All right, well, that's the best thing to get into, I suppose. What do we think of the film? Do we enjoy it? Do we not enjoy it? What's the verdict?
Verdict straight off. It's no, it's just not a good film. Honestly, no.
Okay.
I will explain why as we go through it, but
I will agree with Fraser. No, I cannot believe I've watched it twice.
Okay then. First time I watched it, I super didn't enjoy it. Really critical. I thought probably the same thing you two were thinking. Not impressed, but rewatching it the second time, I had a blast. I had a great time.
although I do have to say, whoever discovered the locations for this film did a fantastic job. That is one thing I find. The locations were fantastic.
I think it was shot in... Was it Pennsylvania? It was shot somewhere where they had access to a fairly sizable tax cut, I think. Something to the tune of $14 million, I believe, off the top of my head. Yeah, I mean, I think physically it looked great. I mean, one thing I'll say straight out of the gate, Dean Semler, who was the DOP, I think the shots looked fantastic. It was beautifully shot. Scenes where you've got a lot of colour, I think it was very nicely arranged. The composition was really good. I mean, old Dean here, he's worked on, I've got a bit of a list here, he worked on Mad Max 2 and 3, Young Guns, Dances with Wolves, Super Mario Brothers, the movie, Last Action Hero, Triple X, Bruce Almighty, 2012 Stealth. So there's a big range of different films that he's worked on, and I kind of want to go back to films that didn't make much of an impression, like Stealth, and see how they look, paying more attention to the cinematography, because I have to say, I think this film looked beautiful.
So the locations wise, we've got the weird tree, witch's tree at the start. Then we've got the main ones would be the potion shop.
It was all shot in the city. You've got her apartment, you've got the potion shop.
Oh, Rose Leslie's apartment was amazing.
Yeah, it was a really nice place. His apartment, Calder's apartment, very pristine, very nice. And then you had effectively what I believe is a mine for the Witch's Coven.
Yeah, the big vault underneath the
the prison.
Yes.
Underneath the cathedral.
Yeah. It looks like a disused mine.
I think visually. Well, I mean, let's just jump into it, I suppose. The film opens with a group of merry, or not so merry, adventurers heading to what is ostensibly the tree from Sleepy Hollow on steroids.
I thought Deku Tree on steroids, but
that is an evil fucking Deku Tree.
Yeah.
Vin Diesel with hair. How do we feel about Vin Diesel? Have we seen Vin Diesel with hair before?
I have no particular emotion about Vin Diesel with her.
I like this as a point that you bring up, like it's the big point of the movie.
It's just one of those things, like in Triple X, we got Samuel L. Jackson with hair, and it took me a long time to figure out what I found distracting about it, but it was the fact that you very rarely see him with hair. And it was like that in, I think one of the first production stills of this showed Vin Diesel with his beard and his wig, and it looks good, but it's quite entertaining.
I think while you were having your moment with Vin Diesel's hair, I realised that I was going to not get on with this film, because there's a moment where they all gather outside the tree and the leader of their LARP group decides to just remind everyone exactly what the plot is so far.
Guys, now we're in earshot of the bad guys. Here's the game plan.
So he literally has them all in a line and he's like, right, so the witch made the plague and we need to kill the witch to stop the plague, and remember that you got to get her with fire and iron. And he has a little recap as though they haven't discussed what their plan is or anything. They just walked up to the tree and then had this group meeting outside the tree. And I was like, oh.
He also says this is our chance, this is going to be it. It's just like, well, yeah, that's a good one for motivating the guys, because if it doesn't work, they're dead. So it's the one and only shot they get at this.
But then they don't actually plan. So when they actually get in there, I think they will stand there while one guy gets pretty hammered, and then the witches jump out.
Queen. He touches the queen and then becomes kind of melted. It's like they went in this without knowing what the queen's powers were, even though they knew everything about the queen.
See, I quite liked the fact. I mean, they climb up the magic tree anus, and then when they're in that little inner chamber, I like that there's no, the witch can do fireballs and they have to deal with fireballs. It's like he throws a thing at the witch, Queen, and she's not there anymore. And then he touches his axe, and spikes go out of the handle. Then he collapses to the floor and explodes in flies, which carry off people. It's just magic pandemonium. There's no real logic or kind of sense to it. It just happens. And I think if we'd seen that same level of danger from all the witches throughout the film, there'd be more of a tangible threat there.
I don't know. Like, my issue isn't that with the magic. That I thought was cool. My issue was that they walked in, that happened, and they all watched it happen. No one did anything. Even Calder just stood and watched, and then you had the boss fight basically.
Which was a huge boss fight, really, because it takes Calder goes and takes her on, stands his own, and then just gets hit and goes down.
I have a genuine question. Does Calder have to shout by iron and fire to activate his sword? Or did he go in there with his sword unactivated and forget, and then as he stabbed one was like, oh shit.
Oh yeah, shit, iron and fire. I don't know. In that moment I realised that I don't like Vin Diesel growling words that aren't Groot.
He was very mumbly.
And then as he got carried away by flies, I realised, right, I have the perfect way to fix this film. And I'm not going to tell you until the end, but I have the best fix for this film. But in that sequence, there was something that really bothers me they do in films where the camera is on the witch, Queen, and then it cuts to the dude who's about to throw an axe at her. He throws the axe, the camera follows the axe, and then when it gets to where the Queen was, she's not there anymore. And it's like, as far as we see, she was there one moment and then she's gone. But everyone else saw her disappear. Like, the other characters inside that space don't have the same viewpoint as the camera. So although she was out of frame when she disappeared, did she, like, just fucking duck, eat shit, and jump out the way? Like, did she, like, jump back into the trees? It's always like, oh, she disappeared. Yeah, but you were all looking. You all saw her disappear, right? That would be more interesting to see than... We all kind of know that axe isn't going to get her, because at the very start of the movie.
It'd be a bit too quick.
She did look cool, though.
Yeah. Design...
Which is why it's so bad that witches later are so underwhelming. She had, like, spine for hair.
Yeah.
She looked really cool.
That's what got me, was why did she look so different? Being a witch queen, did she have extra powers than other witches? None of that's explained. Why she can't look like a normal witch like the rest of them do, like a normal person?
Well, all the modern witches are like alternative humans, aren't they? They're all goth humans, or...
Yeah, they're all like Hot Topic models. But it's like the...
And then you got this tree woman with a spine growing out of her neck.
I mean,
who needs a second spine?
I kind of got the feel that the witches were all very druidic and very natural. Because we see a lot of the modern day witches have plants fucking everywhere, and there's that one at the intro montage where she's got a flower shop and she's growing the flowers while Mike O'Kane is talking.
There's the taxi driver witch that just gives him the witch eye in the taxi.
Yeah, and he for a short journey he hits a lot of witches in one short space of time. But I kind of got the impression that we should have seen all of the other witches like the Queen, but less corrupted. Like, they should all be... Like, she was very wooden and natural, and she blended with the tree, but she looked like a corrupted version. I feel like we should have had some old good witches that are all green and naturalistic. Because the impression I got was that
like she was an evil witch.
Yeah, she was like corrupted natural witch and like an evil druid. But yeah, I think the design on her was fantastic. I think the costuming on all the hairy Vin Diesel and his merry men, I think the costuming looked great. It wasn't particularly LARPy. It was all well done. I think the armory was done pretty well as well. I love that bit where she scratches his armor and you see the armor implode with him inside. I thought that was a pretty graphic, cool way to go. That didn't show any gore or anything. But
then they went like, what? So he drops down the hole, doesn't he?
He falls back through the anus. Yeah.
He falls. She drops him down the thing and goes down. He tries to touch her and she like hisses at him. And then they go down the humans are shit cliche, which is like her whole motivation for starting the Black Plague and starting this war is just basically that because humans are shit. And
yeah, so you destroy everything. You destroy everything. You what is it? You build over everything you touch.
You stack rocks on top of each other and live in your own filth.
So you want to wait to the 21st century, mate.
But I blame Tolkien for this because it's like a fantasy thing. Since then, it's like all the other, elves and dwarves. They've got their vices, but they're better than humans. Humans are always the corrupt shit race, and they just, instead of doing any interesting thing where the witches and humans actually fell out, she just basically went, humans are shit, plague.
Yeah, there's no real explanation of her motives or who she is all the way throughout, which kind of annoyed me. It was just very two-dimensional in that way. And then they're both on the floor at that point, aren't they? And then, oh no, she does the monologuing, and Calder spots his pitch bleeding out on the other side of the room. And so brings out his fiery blade, hits it, and sets the whole tree on fire.
Yeah, I mean, maybe don't make your tree house out of petrol and toilet paper, because that thing went up.
Maybe don't make your oil explosive.
No, it's
interesting.
oil.
That was all a sound stage. That was I think it was a rain stage, and the whole tree actually caught fire. Like it was a full burning set.
Oh no, we've actually missed a bit. We've skipped over a bit, which is where she makes him hallucinate a little paper bird.
Oh yeah.
And then hallucinate
his daughter. Yeah. He immediately goes to hug and go, "You're not real. Don't touch her, then, you idiot."
Generic hero backstory number 4. But why didn't I hate this about when they've got powers where they can make you see something? Why didn't she just make herself invisible, or why didn't she just have him so he didn't see like where he was walking and he tripped down a hole? Why did she make him see something that was obviously fake?
Yeah, it didn't, especially for it to be as easily cast away.
Yeah.
And forgotten about. I mean, they kind of return to that later, but yeah.
It's just kind of like a one-off there. It seemed a bit awkward. Just, here's a scene of your child and a bird. But you didn't spot the hole behind you. Now you fall down.
Yeah.
I've got a question then. So we've really ragged on this first bit.
Yeah.
Do you guys think it would have been a better film if it was purely based in this timeline rather than skipping to the modern day?
I prefer this as a Dominic Toretto prequel. This is where Dom starts, and then he becomes the Fast and Furious.
Fast and Furious 0.5.
Yeah, but he's on like wagons and shit. Oh, that'd be awesome.
Oh my god.
I actually think it would have worked better. I'm going to ignore your opinion.
Yeah, I think working in this time frame, I think back in that time, it would be more interesting. So long as they first, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's ways to take this kind of story and make it shit in the old days. Season of the Witch with Nick Cage is terrible. It is objectively a bad film, and it's boring and it's not interesting.
But
so
I think
it's
they
possible.
would have had more time rather than having to set up all of the stuff with the church and the cross and the all of the stuff about the modern day. It would have been interesting to if they had more time by not having to explain that and keeping it in the older setting. Even though we've really ragged on this older bit, I actually think this is one of the better parts of the film.
I actually would have preferred it to be modern day.
Entirely
and maybe fast forward a few hundred years to
Sci-fi.
modern day. Not be like 1200s when this happened. Maybe bring it up to early 1900s, so that it's just a little bit advanced.
I think either that or take more of that old fantasy and put it in the modern day, because it's very much everyone's wearing suits and alternative clothing, and occasionally something fucked up happens. Whereas if it was set in the modern day and there is like a complete Wolf Among Us style other world that people aren't seeing, I think would be more interesting. Like return like more of the tree druidic crazy stuff. I think would be quite good. But instead, it's very muted and very. It reminds me of the end of Dracula Unborn, where you see Luke Evans wandering about and Tywin's out there as well, and they're all in suits.
But I think
that was good because that was earned throughout the journey of that film. But yeah, that's what it reminds me of. But then she does the baller grade dick move of cursing him with immortality. Just as he caps her.
But just before that point, it's like the tree's going on fire. She's panicking, looking all around like she's never seen fire before in her life. And all of a sudden, he's able to just, pierce her through the heart into a tree. Like, job done. No big hassle.
And as cool as she was, there's a bit where she's pinned to the tree and she fights like how I fight as a short person when I can't reach someone. She like reaches, genuinely, she reaches for him and he's just out of reach because she's pinned to the tree, and it took any credibility she had as a villain. It was like, oh, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, exactly. One, you've just showed all these powers, the flies you can summon, but no, you just got pierced in the middle and now you're just wailing, but you realise you're pinned to a tree.
Yeah, I mean, those flies carry the bubonic plague. So just flick one at his eye.
No, she decided to make him immortal instead.
You fucked in 6 hours, mate. Yeah. Which, as we find out, is part of a grand game plan, which I think is quite cool, plot-wise, as a way out. So, I've cursed you with immortality, you dickhead. And he spends that whole time getting all mopey, and he's basically holding her immortality for her. I think that's really cool.
Why does she give him her immortality just before she's about to have to?
Because she's about to die, obviously.
She's not going to die because she's immortal.
Yeah, that's kind of where the problem kicks in. Well, it might be that she puts her life. She's not immortal, but she puts her life into him, which makes him immortal, and then when she gets it back, she's back to full power or whatever.
Well, yeah, technically she's not immortal because she pierced the witch's heart and she would die. So she does have a clause to be killed.
They needed to spend more time on why it's a dick move for him to have to live forever. Like, they didn't put any...
Yeah, he doesn't really suffer for it, does he?
He makes like a speech in the graveyard when the new Dolan... He's like, I was here when these were built, and but he doesn't seem...
He just uses his exceptional skill with accents to pick up air stewardesses.
That was creepy.
Whereas it would be better if he was like, if he'd forgotten who his family was, like... That I think one of the most recent series of Doctor Who did it with Maisie Williams. Like, she lives so long, but she's got a human brain. She forgets all of her family and her past, and she has to write it all down. I think that's a cool idea, and that would make the immortality a much bitterer pill, because it's like gutted in 150 years. You're going to forget who your family are.
Has he been single since his wife and child died for the 800 years? Do we think?
Romantically single, because he's certainly been making some pit stops around the world.
But yeah, I don't think he's had any serious relationship for the last 800 years. Because Michael Caine, during his narration, made no reference to his relationship status.
We should check his Facebook. But the bit on the plane, before Michael Caine's narration.
Right, so yeah, she hands off her immortality. There she goes, and then that's kind of where we leave it for now. We cut to the modern day in a plane. He's very confused by the storm outside.
He whispers exposition. It seems like if there's no other characters around for him to tell, he will just whisper exposition. So he breathes on the glass and then goes...
And there's like a little compass
we see the magic, see the rune, and he goes, magic.
Yeah, so...
as though the audience is unable to go, that's not right.
We all know if that was a Ryanair flight, he'd have breathed on that and there'd have just been like a dick on that window.
And then he empties his glass. He's a dick, basically. He empties his glass into that guy's lap and he's like, oh, I'm sorry.
And then stares him down until he leaves.
It's like, if you're going to be an asshole about it, just don't bother apologising, because you're just devaluing the word for the rest of us.
And then he's creepy to that air stewardess. He knows exactly where she was born.
But he kind of nags that girl into giving him the talismans that she's acquired. He's not a very good witch hunter. Like, we find out later that he doesn't hunt any witches. He just brings them in to be thrown in jail. And in this one, he's like, so you've brought some shit on a plane that's going to kill everyone. I'm going to basically be a school teacher and kind of give you a wistful telling off.
Well, this is why the witches, after you see the bad boy witch queen, you realise that this sort of young girl is a witch, and she's brought these magical artifacts on. And he basically goes up and takes them, and it's just so deflating that she's so crap. She looks so normal, and 2, she just seems to be like, yeah, I've got them.
I had no idea what they seem to do.
I do.
There's storms happening outside, and she so happens to have some magical runes in her pocket. She can't put 2 and 2 together and go, "Is this my fault?"
I didn't expect to hear the lines. It's just basic science in this film, though, so that was a win. When he's like
counting that as a win.
I'm counting that as a win. Yeah, I mean it's
Is that the level of wins we've got?
It's a shame she's not particularly impressive, or at least it's a shame that the other witches aren't impressive enough to show you that this one is just.
I think he
an
even
inept
says
girl.
to her, like, he says, "Oh, you witches, you don't even know the power you've got," and it's like to go from the ass kicking queen witch who looked really cool to this, like, straight away after, it was like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. Yeah, we'll comment on that later. So, one thing I did like is that the engines start to make a funny noise, and then the second the talismans are taken apart, they stop making a funny noise. So it's very, very instant turnaround for saving the day there. We then cut to Mike O'Kane. Mike O'Kane.
No, we didn't. No, we don't just cut to Michael Caine. We're then faced, as we've referenced probably 3 times already, the weird hitting on an air hostess who's trying to make him sit in a chair.
Yeah.
What I find is probably the creepiest line after saying where your hometown is saying, "I've been around a lot. It's surprising what you pick up." Looking at the girl like I'm going to pick you up right now, it's just cringy. That
it's surprising what you pick up being an international murderer. It is really creepy.
She just walks out of his room as well, isn't in the next. Ugh.
Down the elevator.
To be honest though, if he'd done a good job of being charismatic, and I could have bought into that, because he's a good-looking guy, and if he had been charming, I could have bought that. And I think if that was the case, her just walking out would have been tasteful enough that it would have been like, he does do things outside of kicking witch ass.
Yeah.
But because he was so creepy about it, and he was a dick to one of the other passengers and condescending to the witch, it was just, it just left a real bad feeling.
James Bond-esque douchebag kind of mentality that you don't really see for the rest of the film. It's kind of it feels like a setup to a character from an earlier draft, and then they took out scenes later on which are more reflective of that kind of character.
He doesn't really endear himself to the viewer at the start, after getting his arse slightly kicked by the Queen, stepping up, and then it just looks like he's turned into a spoiled arse.
Yeah.
He walks around planes and says, "I own this. I will save everyone."
Yeah, like, piss off the white dude in a suit, sit down and tell off the Hot Topic model passenger, and then get laid.
If he was like cynical about it because he's lived for so long, I think that would have worked. That would have fed into the character, but he wasn't. He was just. It just fell really flat. And
and then
you get to Michael Caine.
Then we get to Mike O'Kane, and that montage is beautifully shot. Like the framing of the different things he's passing in the taxi, the different things we see, the colouring on the greenery is fantastic. I think it's a beautifully put together sequence. Michael Caine does still look like a parrot. He's looking more and more like a parrot as the years go on. I've stood next to him actually in the lobby of a play, and he is massive. He's about twice my height. It's a bit of an exaggeration, but he is very tall.
I didn't notice just because I think Vin Diesel stands next to quite a lot of small people in this, and it makes Vin Diesel look massive, and then the people that are with him look tiny.
Yeah, he's
like Elijah Wood and
Elijah Wood,
Rose Leslie.
But yeah, I thought it was a fantastic opening sequence. I mean, what do we think of that opening montage? Bit of narration. You love a bit of narration, don't you?
I've just written narration Y in capital letters.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, I don't see why there's narration there. It was just kind of forcing a story that, quite honestly, could have been filled in a lot more on the plane. I don't really think the plane was entirely necessary.
I mean, I think you could have had we could have had the plane sequence with no audio, with Michael Caine's narration over the top, and you just assume what Vin Diesel was doing on the plane, because Michael Caine's explaining it. Or I think put more of that intro like build up the the sword axe and the cross, sword and the cross,
Axe and a cross.
axe and the cross. Build that into that opening scene with the 7 dwarfs going into the demon tree. Like, if that's when that started, then build that up then.
But I possibly could have forgiven it. Firstly, if it added any character to Michael Caine, which it did not, and secondly, if it took away the need for exposition later. But it didn't, even after the narration. If after we got past the cringy narration, if there was no exposition in the rest of the film that sort of held up character interaction, it would have been fine. But it wasn't. Even the rest of the film, it's just full of clumsy exposition. I even think one of the first things that Michael Caine does when he actually meets with Calder is he says, like, oh, Calder says it's only been 53 years. And they just start really clumsily padding out, like basically characters telling each other what they already know.
However, it's a really well performed sequence. Like, the dialogue might be a bit hammy, but it's great seeing them talk.
Oh yeah, that bit I did really enjoy. That bit was the back and forth between them. But the montage itself, also without the narration, doesn't really push anything with the story. It's just showing modern day New York with a bit of magic thrown in, which dictates around people's eyes, it seems a lot. If you ever looked into a witch's eyes, you could definitely tell something's up. If you tell them to go see the optometrist, or you think they've got cataracts because they've got that cloudy thing at the back of their eye, it's...
it's not the strongest setup. We do get the Brofist opening door, though. That's pretty cool.
That was not cool.
No, it's not particularly cool. It's like, if the key to your closet is a ring, it's not a secure enough lock. You're not going to get a complex enough shape off a signet ring to open a wardrobe full of magic weapons.
Well, also, if you also wanted a safe that said, here's all of my possessions, please do not go... You shape it like your symbol, don't you? It's completely obvious. It's in the middle of the room.
Made out of what is like petrified wood or warped obsidian or something.
So quite honestly, I think the security needs to be before you get in the room, because after you see it, it's useless. Someone's going to try and get into it.
He does have a really cool pool table, though. Don't know if you saw that in the back of the shot as they're talking. That was a pretty sleek pool table. I'll have one of those.
But I think the fact that you were bored enough to have seen the pool table.
I was just drinking in the set design. Like, it's so well put together. Like, the locations are so well built, especially for the small amount of time you spend in them. I'm not. No, it's beautiful. There was a lot to feast on visually, and I think the two of them acting together were really good. It's not a combination you'd think of, putting Vin Diesel and Michael Caine next to each other, but they have a really good kind of chemistry. It doesn't feel hackneyed or awkward. I thought it was pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the higher points of the movie, honestly, was the back and forth between the Dolan and Calder. Just the fact that it seems like they've been around each other for the last 50 years. After saying, you've been working for me for 50 years. But I did like the music choice in the background as well. It's Moonlight Sonata. Which kind of just gave that element. It's kind of unease, but it's because the Dolan's retiring and it's the last time he'll see him. It just kind of gives that in the background.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a bit of emotional kind of leverage tied into him aging and kind of time kind of moving differently for him that I think they missed out on. If they were going to make more of a thing out of how his immortality sucks balls, they could have done more with the relationship he'd have with Michael Caine, Dolan 36 at this point. But
or maybe one of the previous Dolans, how he reminisces about you were like Dolan number 17 in certain ways. I did like him as well. Not going, you're the only one I've got on with.
Yeah. Because you kind of get the impression that's very similar to how he picked up that stewardess. I've never felt this way about a stewardess I've met before. I've never had a Dolan that made me feel this way before. And then the next Elijah Wood's gonna come knocking, and he's like, "Oh, Mr. Frodo, I've never felt this way about a Dolan before." It's shallow. It's shallow, Vinny. Shallow. We then meet Dolan 37. We meet Elijah Wood, who just doesn't look right. Not dressed as Frodo. I feel bad for typecasting him, but he's Frodo in my head. I can't.
I actually really liked him in this.
He's very good. Yeah.
I think he had a good a presence in the scenes that didn't overwhelm Vin Diesel, and there were a few moments where the two of them were explaining things to each other, and I think he actually carried off explaining magic rules to someone that knows magic rules quite well, just because it. And then there were a few times where you can see Vin Diesel's asking for his hands, and he like holds it up, and you can actually see the emotion behind the actor's face. I think he did really well.
Yeah, I think he was good. I mean, he had a bit of a one-note story arc insofar as his actual interaction with the plot. But yeah, he's very good. He's a very talented actor. I mean, he was in that Maniac film, first-person thing, a little while back. He was Kevin in Sin City.
I think one
he's very
thing
good in that
I realised with him though, which I really didn't like, is all of the things to do with magic and the council and everything in the film, they're all very literally named. So you've got the Witch Council, dark magic, the 4 types of magic. Like everything is pretty much named what it actually is.
Yeah, they're not linguists. They're not particularly.
But it just felt very
inventive.
placeholder, like very.
Yeah.
This is. I think he even picks up like a root, doesn't he? Where the Dolan's been attacked, and he's like, "This is dark magic," and why?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, there wasn't much.
The Witch Queen.
I think it wasn't in. It's fine when you give something a very plain name if characters use it a lot, because it's the sort of thing that you then get used to hearing. I'm struggling to think of any examples at the moment, but if you get something that's given a really stupid, bland name, if enough characters use it with enough conviction, you stop thinking about it as its constructed words, and you think about the meaning behind it, and it gets accepted into usage. But you don't hear the phrase dark magic or the various labels given to the parts of the witch's world.
I think most of the characters and their terms were just very flat, mainly because it seemed like they needed to just say things to the audience and pick it up straight away. All the characters were not very well built. They were all very two-dimensional. They were all there to get Calder from the start of the movie to the end of the movie. There was no other purpose for those characters. They were just shuffling them through to the end.
Which I think, and I was going to mention this later, but I'll do it now, that's particularly something bad in this film, because there is no danger to Calder. So we need to have something to be scared of other than Calder being hurt, because he's immortal, so there's no point. So the only way that the film could make us care really would be by threatening someone that we care about that isn't Calder. And there's no one. There's the Rose Leslie, fantastic actress, but her character, I hated her. And Elijah Wood's character.
But he doesn't go with him for most of it.
He's not there for most of it, and I wouldn't particularly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be that fussed.
Well, he's so we have Mike O'Kane gets jobbed in his or at least Calder gets a call saying that he's been killed. And service will be tomorrow. He turns up to the funeral, which is more actually just where Dolan 37 is getting sworn in. He gets branded, and
I did like how he just faintly cringed when he got branded.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, that stings. It's like, no, that
It's
hurt.
like the direction was, Elijah, do you know how it feels to be branded? His reaction would probably be, no, I don't. It's just like, well, just imagine you know what it's like. Try to feel what it is like having a burning hot poker put into your arm.
I want him to hold up the
to
hand
act
with
that.
the missing fingers that Gollum bit off and just be like, I think I can handle being fucking branded, okay?
You can't get away from him as Frodo, can you?
I really can't. He's just, yeah. So he goes out and Calder has a bit of a funny turn and he jumps in his car to go and investigate Mike O'Kane's flat, see what's going on.
Ridiculously expensive car.
A very expensive car, but at least it wasn't red.
Again, I think that's one of the few times where the comedy was actually quite on it for me.
And off they go to Michael Caine's apartment. A man so Catholic, he has crosses on all of his lamps. That's dedication. That's either that or he's been taking them home from work. That is also a possibility.
Still supply some work.
Why'd you have a great big golden... Is that a font? Yeah. We got a new one at work. Didn't need the old one.
But yeah, so they investigate the flat, and one of the first questions is, do you know what the types of magic there are? The reply being, yes, there's 4. Fire, earth, wind, and water.
That is my favourite disco band, to be fair.
Earth, wind, and fire.
Yeah, and the not very often spoken about water.
And then Calder then puts water on the window and air on the window, then puts his lighter up. At which point they go, well, just to make sure there's no magic, and goes to leave. Yeah. Even though they hadn't actually gone through the 4 which he literally just asked about.
What
5
did you
seconds
expect him
earlier.
to do though? Like grab some earth from the plant pot?
Just push your plant pot over. Nah, that's fine.
Well, you say that. He goes to leave. He then spots there's 3 flies on the floor. And he goes, oh, that's too coincidental, as soon as the window's closed. And then takes out a vial of earth from his pocket and spills that on the floor. So he has the earth on him. He has a detection means. He just goes, I'm not wasting this earth on Michael Caine here. I'm off.
He's in New York. There's not much greenery around, so he has to hold on to his dirt when he can. And then we see a pentagram. And then I think it was a really cool visual effect seeing that illusion spell get broken and seeing the part fuck itself up from the inside to show it's been turned over and everything's been thrown everywhere. And I thought that was, you see the straps put on the chair and it's been turned over. I thought that was really cool.
But how much cooler would it have been rather than having the Action Jackson moment of the window
Get
shutters
down!
And he's like, get down! And he pushes Elijah Wood and shields him with his own body. How much cooler would it have been if they just both stood there while this was happening? Like, yeah, it's like we're aware of magic. We know it's magic. He's a Dolan. He's lived for 800 years.
I think it would have even been more acceptable to have Elijah duck and then have Glass just cut Calder's face to ribbons and it heals, and kind of show that he doesn't really care. You don't really see him in any physical peril much throughout this film, given that he is someone who is immortal. So I think it would be quite entertaining just to see him get cut up and he's like, meh, I don't feel pain anymore. I'm dead
feel
inside.
Much pain.
And then
it'd be funny if Calder was bad boy, but really had a really low pain threshold.
Don't punch me. We then discover that the bad guys of the film are possibly the worst bad guys they could ever be. They are pen thieves. Fuck pen thieves. Thieves of pens can go fuck themselves.
But then they just
give
the pen
yes,
away.
because we've just found out it's dark magic.
Which
Because
is not
all
listed
other
in the
types of
4.
magic are, they could be good, they could be evil. But if you use this ingredient, it's dark magic. It's beyond evil.
And that's pretty much the point at which he says, yeah, we've got to go on an investigation. So they go to a bakery, and I thought it was quite a cool, understated mention that the bakery is overflowing with people desperate to get cupcakes. They made a big deal out of what's going into them. I think it would have been better if they'd not mentioned what goes into the cupcakes at all. And you're just like, there's a lot of people queuing for the cupcakes, and we know this guy's magic. What the fuck's going on?
The wormly grobbly thing.
But they do show the worms and grubs going in. But I thought it was quite cool seeing how someone would use magic to their own gains in such a small way as well. Because running a bakery is not a massive endeavour.
That character was quite cool, actually.
He did forget he was blind twice, though. There was twice where he was doing the head turns, and then he would look someone directly in the eye for emphasis.
It's magic.
It's magic. Oh, well, there we go then. I thought the imagery of the butterfly was really cool.
Yep.
I think seeing the blue Like, I don't know what type of butterflies they were, but seeing them kind of scatter everywhere, and then I thought that was a really cool visual effect.
Although Max had dealt with Calder before, so I didn't think clicking his fingers, having butterflies fly everywhere would be an efficient escape plan. Which he was using it for was the covers of butterflies, and then Calder's just like, I walked round them, and I'm round the other side of you now.
Yeah, it wasn't the smoothest escape plan. But maybe the spiders were like, it was their rest day or something.
Oh, and actually, Calder makes reference to him being a level 14 warlock.
We saw that as well.
Which I'm not sure if that was a nod to Dungeons and Dragons or anything, but it never gets referenced again. There's no kind of hierarchy again. It's just, oh, he's a level 14 warlock. There's nothing you can do against him.
That was fantastic. We had a bit of a chuckle about that as well. Oh, only level 14?
Yeah, it's that one line asks a lot of questions, and knowing he's a massive D&D nerd means you're probably not going to get it's probably not a line you should pay too much attention to. But yeah, I was it raises a lot of questions about the world they're living in and how the witches actually live and how they're classified, and you know, it was an accord reached by the witches and the humans. So is it just the church that knows about this pact, or is there a governmental level? Or it kind of got me freewheeling into a lot of different possible storylines.
It's annoying because it's another cliche. It's whenever there's a fantasy world with magic in, that magic is governed by something less powerful.
Yeah.
All the time. I know that he's very powerful and that he's basically the police, but are we saying he can get to every witch that decides to fuck everyone up?
Yeah, it's
all the time. It's Dragon Age. There's magic, but for some reason they've acquiesced to be watched over by someone less powerful.
Men in Black is a bit like it as well.
For once, I'd quite like magic is really powerful. We tried to stop it from being powerful, so they killed everyone.
Although the information Calder gets from Max in this scene is garlic that's not garlic, and mouldy crab apples. Which Calder then just goes, oh, I know what that is, because I'm super good at this job. And he comes to the realisation that it's got to be a Civil War period funeral parlour, because they use arsenic for embalming.
And they will have had to have garlic, crab apples in the garden.
Tree. And it's just like, I just thought, there was never any other use for arsenic. No other building would ever need arsenic. No arsenic mines around, for instance.
Does that mean you could get like some mushrooms and then some jelly beans, some strawberry jam, and then some tungsten, and just smear it all over yourself, commit a crime, and he'd be like, right, we're looking for someone who comes from Eastern Bosnia from the 1700s who now lives in a sugar sweet factory. It seems like a very flimsy set of clues to follow to get to where and it really does kind of.
They should have done that. Max has a magical way of like scrying or seeing, because he's blind as well, isn't he? So it would be cool if his power was linked to
seeing.
Yeah.
His lack of, and I feel that they could have probably explained Max's loss of vision. Maybe Calder caused it. Maybe witches something.
Yeah, because witches act like they've got a bad time of it in this, don't they? A lot of them are very like down. They act very downtrodden, but it does look like they're kind of able to practice at will.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any sort of
limits on them or anything.
No.
Yeah.
The only restriction is there's one man who can come round to get you.
I was then completely blindsided from the nonsense of the previous scene by the jelly gummy bear tree, and the kid who follows the trail of gummy bears on the floor. Granted, if there's a trail of gummy bears on the floor that goes behind a house, I think 9 times out of 10 you wouldn't follow it. If it then leads to this is the thing, right? Okay, this is the thing that bothers me. He goes up, he sees this magical gummy bear tree, and he's like, "Holy shit! All the gummy bears I could ever want to eat are growing on this tree." He picks one off the tree, and then he starts scooping up the ones that are already on the floor. They've been on the ground. Yes, they're tree gummy bears, but they've been in the grass where dogs piss. Don't eat those. Take them off the tree. Take more off the tree. Don't take one off the tree and take the rest from the ground.
It had probably the worst understanding of young children in the modern culture that I've ever seen. Because I think what with Charlie
What do kids
says,
these days love? Gummy bears. They love gummy bears, see?
Yeah, but basically if you leave a trail of gummy bears, then a kid will follow. No, a kid will immediately call the police. And that kid didn't even look that young. Like 13, 14. As though he's going to be like, floor sweet. Well, they should have had a trail of iPhones.
Oh. But really, what was the end game for the bad guys in the building there? Did they want to bring kids into the back garden? There's absolutely no explanation as to why they would want a child. There's nothing inside the house where there's other children chained up or anything. There's just absolutely no reason why they need to entice a child down a lane. You know, they've just killed the Dolan. They don't need to bring more attention to themselves by having random children come down this lane. Because if that kid gets out, he's going to tell his other friends about this lane where you get all these gummy bears from, one of which tells their parents, the parents then probably tell the police. I mean, that is media attention that you do not want, especially when you're witches and evil ones at that.
I assumed it was like a throwback to Snow White, you know, because they're trying to get him to eat the crab apples, aren't they? So I just assumed it was a throwback to like the poison apple from Snow White and witches, and because she's a witch in Snow White.
Is she?
Yeah.
Oh, spoiler alert. Yeah, no, it's I don't know. I got a bit of a creepy child murderer vibe from the witch who's living inside, especially when he hides pretends to be a little girl. That was Woody from This Is England, isn't it?
Don't know.
I'm sure it is. I probably could have looked this up, but I didn't.
I have to say, he was the most flourishy assassin I've ever seen. Because he transforms into a little girl and Calder is completely sucked in. And you think in 800 years, Calder would have some way of seeing through stuff like that. But
well, he says later on he's seen that done, but he's only seen it 600 years ago. It's the power of the old witches. And it wasn't him who cast it on himself, it was the other bad guy. I forget his name. Elizal or something like that?
Belial, isn't it? It's a demon name.
Yeah. Casts it on the murderer.
He's literally there, ready to stab Vin Diesel as the child. Vin Diesel's got his arms open, but instead he spins away, transforms back into himself, and then tries to stab.
Yeah, there's no honour in stabbing people as a small child.
Yeah, it was not great.
And then at which point we see Vin Diesel pull out the blade and throw it at the guy's leg, which goes into a piece of wood and jams him in there.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool.
But we know Vin Diesel has
he blocks
immortality.
It with his hands,
fine.
doesn't he?
Yeah, he also blocks
holds
it
it and it goes through his hand. Yeah, I thought that was cool.
And that's where he gets a blade for to throw it through his leg, which goes into. But I admit he's immortal, and fair enough, he can heal very quickly. That's a version of immortality. But no way does he have super strength, which he then has in every other fight scene during this film. He knocks the guy out of one go.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that, and the inability to feel pain is actually just Vin Diesel as a person, and he just forgets to act those things because he just doesn't have that frame of reference. Is that Vin? You got to go through the door, mate. You can't keep walking through the wall. Oh, sorry. I forget because of my strength and my godlike abilities. I apologise.
Then that should have been narrated in the
Michael Caine
bit.
Let me just explain this bit, okay? Yeah.
Vin Diesel is Vin Diesel.
But yeah, and then the guy gets taken away. Elijah Wood sucker punches him. And puts a pretty nifty hood on, and I'm not going to lie, I saw that hood and I thought, does that get cleaned after every captive is brought in? Because the inside of that hood must fucking stink.
That is something only you would think
of. Well, I
can't
can't help it, okay? But imagine he's all condensing his breath against the inside of that weird leather Saxon helmet hood. That must reek.
Well, I'm going to say no. Because quite honestly, they're not going to do it for prisoners.
What I don't understand is they take him to the church, and he's there, and then they put the hood on him to take him downstairs and take the hood off. I mean, yeah, he might not know exactly where in the cathedral is the doorway to the witch council, but I kind of get the impression he can figure out. He walked a few steps and went down some steps, and now he's in the witch council. Like, it's not.
Oh no! When he was brought to the church, he had the hood on.
Oh,
Elijah
the hood
took
on,
it
okay.
off. Yeah,
Also-
Elijah took it off to put the sucker punch in, put it back
Right,
on. And
I
then...
see.
I think Vin Diesel does also say that he has spent some time interrogating him.
Right, I see.
Shout out though to a good moment, because we are bragging on the film a bit. The bit where Elijah Wood he's like, "Don't think less of me," and then punches him.
He says, "I'll confess later."
I'll confess
That was
later.
good,
Yeah.
That was good.
Also, again, another positive thing. I think the design on the Sentinel was really good. Later on, you find out that it's actually built with the weakest glue ever.
Yes, yeah.
But the actual,
But it's magic glue.
But when you see it the first time, I thought it looked really cool.
Yeah, the design is pretty. Again, it's that ancient druidic craziness. It is like a wooden bloodborne sarlacc spider, made out of bits of old boat and skulls, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it takes him away and then presumably stuffs him inside the wall in the mine there. But again, this part this is actually the part I had one of the parts I had the most problem with. It's like the Witch Council. They're clearly, oh yep, he's a bad dude. Throw him away. What, you're not going to interrogate him or question him? There's no way he could have done this on his own. Nope, we're going to chuck him away. So that to me says
we
that
turned
they're
over the
involved.
cards.
Yeah, she's a
Turned over
fucking
the
tarot cards.
Turn over the cards. No Three of Pentacles. That's it. No one's ever got round that. But the thing is, that's not explained how he got round that magic, or if the tarot cards are fake. Is this just a slam at psychics?
She was bad.
Well, same.
Because of
I
how quickly
assumed.
she was like, "No, put him in the wall."
Yeah, I assumed the Witch Council must be involved in the grand plot. Like that's.
Maybe they're just very because they're witches, aren't they? Maybe they don't particularly want to persecute their own kind. Maybe there's a bit of that going on.
But again, there's so much more political intrigue you could get out of a coven, a parliament of witches that are kept underground, out of the way, and having to live without humanity really knowing about them. Like, there's a lot of interesting story stuff that could have come out of that didn't. The council was pretty much left until you come back there later and they're all dead.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the biggest problem I find with this, is the only reason that I saw the name of the leader, the only person in the Witch Council to talk, was because I saw the subtitles. And I actually had to write down her name in the subtitles because you knew you weren't going to remember her. It's the only time I saw it in the subtitles. Was someone's name, and it just seemed like that was a means to an end.
Yeah.
It's because part of the plot of the movie was we needed to get all the witches, incarcerated witches, in one place, and this was an easy way to do it.
Like,
now, her being a bit nonchalant towards just imprisoning everyone and going, well, I've put down 5 cards, I've earned my money this week.
I think it would have been better if there was like a handoff. They take the prisoner to a doorway, and it's like, okay, take the prisoner, and off they go. And they have no interaction with the Witch Council. They don't see what happens beyond that doorway. So later on, when we need to go and speak to the Witch Council, they go downstairs, and it's the Witch Council have been dead for. I mean, it's a bit Bleach Area 46 or whatever it's called, but the council have been dead the whole time, and things have kind of been running amok without anyone noticing. And that way you still have that narrative structure in place, but you don't raise all of these questions and bring in these characters that don't ultimately give anything to the story.
Either that, or because I think there's a bit where Elijah Wood steps up and he's like, and this is the evidence, and he puts the soul pen.
Yes.
And they don't get any trial, or I mean, I suppose the guy is confessing, but basically because he's a witch, he has none of the human rights that we'd normally get. I think that would have been interesting to explore a bit, maybe making the cross and the axe.
But I feel that was a bit iffy with Elijah Wood going, this is the evidence, because the only reason he has to do that in the movie is because they had to smuggle a fly into that meeting.
Yeah.
Which was hidden in the pen that you put down. That he full well knows they're not going to have any questions or anything like that. They're not going to go, oh, we weren't going to convict him, but thanks for bringing the pen. That puts him bang to rights. And then, full of magic users there, the fly comes out, which turns out to be magical. None of them notice.
Yeah.
None of them at all. Only Calder when he goes to the head of the council, who recoils from him.
Yeah.
And then he takes the fly. She has no questions about the fly, even though the other 37th Dolan knows it's a magic fly from the Queen's era.
And it's
Was that the fly that when he realised it's not dead?
Yeah, it's like there's the plague fly, and it's like, well, if they would all recognise the fly, having that fly come out in that meeting would be a really good opportunity to see the council react to the Witch Queen coming back. Like, they would see that and go, that's a statement from her saying that she's coming back. And again, they could have acted, some of them could have abandoned ship and tried to help her, some of them could have tried to fight her. It would have been more interesting, but instead it was just kind of, ugh, witches, aren't they useless? The only good one is this massive, I think, Norwegian bloke one who breathes fire on shit. Belial.
You have to remember that there was no Three of Pentacle cards. Therefore, that's why they can't get involved. He had no one else working with him, even though he's using magic above his pay grade. No Three of Pentacle cards. That's it.
You have no power here.
It's like the Minority Report.
Don't get me
it's
started
actually a
on that
Minority Report on the cards.
I hate that film. Anyway, bombshell dropped. So we then go upstairs, and he figures that Mike O'Kane is not dead. For reasons. He's got a fly in his neck, so he pops that out and squishes it, and lights a candle and blows it out, and Michael Caine lights it again. Fun fact, Michael Caine is in fact 1/16th dragon. It's not something he talks about often. And then he goes pretty much straight from that to Rose Leslie's bar.
Not quite. Well, the only thing I had in that scene was the fact he said, "We've got 2 days to break the curse." But at this point, Michael Caine has been gone for about a day and a half. Is it 4 days in total, or is it just 2 days at all?
I mean, it might be 2 days since the fly came out, possibly.
So was the fly keeping him alive? Why didn't they kill him? That's what we're saying. I don't understand. Why?
Well, exactly. But also, his body's been picked up by the axe and the cross, and it's a murdered Dolan, and they, passed away. None of them think, actually, this guy's been involved in a lot of magic. He's with the witch hunter most of the time. No magic could have been used. None of us are going to check for magic.
Yeah, he's like, he died of a heart attack. Blech.
Well, what was annoying is I think they killed Michael Caine because they needed to interrogate him to get the location of the heart, but then actually they didn't kill him. They interrogated him, and the guy says, "Oh, he gave up in 5 minutes." So why didn't they then kill him? But then if they had just killed him anyway, Elijah Wood would have been raised and told the location of the heart. So they could have just killed him.
Yeah.
And in that scene when he's carving into the candle and Elijah's getting a bit uppity because nuns are coming, he then just plays the exposition game with Vin Diesel about what's that type of magic. I've never seen that magic before.
Yeah.
So it's just like back and forth about this candle magic as opposed to all the other magic that he's learned.
This is candle magic, Elijah. Shut up.
Candle magic is inherently beyond evil.
But anyway, yes, they've got 2 days to break the curse, so Calder's got something to do.
And he finds a clue in the Dolan's Bible, which is "Remember your death," which apparently is one of the only things that Vin Diesel has forgotten, or at least he's not forgotten because he was kind of dead at the time. So
he was cognizant though.
He wasn't cognizant.
He's cognizant enough to scream.
Well, yeah. So he goes off to Rose Leslie's bar, Rose Leslie of Game of Thrones fame, and she
I think
seems
Fraser
to be.
is right. That location was really.
It
good.
was fantastic, really nice, really good location.
Really good idea.
And she's selling, memories? She's selling potions, but seems to be a memory one is quite a rare one. So I think
She's
he
got
said
a fear potion.
there's a love potion.
Love shot.
Well, no, it's not rare really. It seems they're just potions are everywhere. It seems to be quite commonplace. Whatever you need, she's got.
It was odd that when he was at the bar, he was like, "Oh, a fear potion. What are you scared of?" It's like, Vin, she didn't sneeze that out because she's scared. Like, it's been made specifically. She's not gone, "Oh, I'm scared." Oh, it's a fear potion now.
I think that's Calder's weird way of flirting.
You reckon? Oh, what
And it's
diseases
also
are
the
you
fact
scared
that
of?
she's running the bar. She's not making drinks for herself. Anyone else could have been sat at the bar drinking that fear potion.
They missed a good opportunity for a Jonathan Crane Easter egg in there. She then says this. She agrees to make the potion after kind of saying she doesn't want to, because it's clear they're a bit racist against Vin Diesel's, because he's a witch hunter, which apparently he doesn't hunt them, and the witches are a bit meh, so it kind of feels like that falls flat.
Although the bargaining scene did seem a bit strange when she was never willing to sell him the drink. She
But
thought
then
she could.
180s and she does sell him the
It's like,
drink.
oh, 50 grand. Oh, shit, I can't afford 50 grand. Haha. Well, as you can see, I was trying to comply, but I didn't. We could have had him instill some form of control that he has. Like, I command you to do it because of the order of the witches doing as they're fucking told that the council gave me. And then we see a bit of conflict where she has to comply. Which would explain why he has so much, why the witches are so scared of him. Would be quite interesting.
She's like unnecessarily antagonistic.
Yeah. She then mentions the one thing that jumped up to me was when she gives him the potion, she gives him the spiel about if you die in the dream, you die in reality. He's like, I never die. She says, well, I have to do it for my insurance. Which insurance company is covering this? Are there which insurance companies that cover witch-related activities?
That's what it's...
Well, that's our movie. I want a film about that. Workplace romantic comedy in the witch insurance agency.
You're a strange person.
That'd be way more interesting.
But that's what I don't get is she says she's got insurance, and I presume that insurance would probably also cover fire damage. And she says she loses everything, but it's a fire.
Yep, that's true.
It's also only on like the behind the bar really that catches fire. Like it's a very big place.
Yeah, again, it raises more questions about witches. Like, she mentions later on the specific type of witch she is, but up till that point, witches, we've just seen witches do whatever they want. So it's like,
witches are like
got
humans.
no water spell, no water magic.
Humans have the same ability to do everything the witches do, but better. There's a bit where Belial sets the bar on fire and it takes him 10 seconds and he blows powder. And it's like matches and alcohol. 2 seconds would have done you.
Molotov, bro.
Yeah.
But there's no alcohol behind the bar, so where would he got the alcohol from?
The bit where she takes a selfie, I thought that was really funny.
That was really good. That was a really funny moment. That jumped out to me as being like exactly the right. It's a shame we didn't get more comedy out of her because she can pull it off.
And then the fight where he's like flitting between the memory and fighting Belial, and there's a bit where he punches the air in front of Belial and it like the air cracks like a mirror.
He gets like a shield.
That was really cool.
That was really good. I think all of the effects work on the spells and magic themselves was really good. Apart from the flies, which I think particle effects on flies is a bit generic. But I think the magic was visualized very well.
Again, it's just there's no explanation as to what the limit their magic is, because like you said, there's no water spell, but they can do fire.
Yeah.
They can do memories, and they can make a magical shield, which never came up again. And the Witch Queen could have really used that a few times, in the start of the film when she got impaled by a sword. Maybe a magical shield at that point may have been helpful.
And then I want to say, I really like Rose Leslie. I think she's a fantastic actress, and I think she probably did the best with what she was given. But that character was she was just looking for any excuse to make a cliche speech. So that I think after they burn the bar, she spends about half a second trying to put it out with an extinguisher, then gives up, and she says, I guess you are the monster that they say you are. And it's like, well, one, that's totally illogical. And two, it just makes her really irritating. And she does it so often in the film, I just ended up hating her character.
Yeah.
I think later on, she runs up to him in a church before he's about to go do something on his own, and she's like, that's just not who you are. And it's like, you've known him for like a day, probably less at that point. And it's just really annoying. She's full of moments like that where she will just come out. There's a bit where I think she's going to find the ingredient, and it's before she finds her friend is dead. And she's like, what do humans even know about witches? They think we've got green skin and everything she says is like a complaining speech.
But I would like to say that was the best attempt I've ever seen in any movie at trying to put out a fire in the most inefficient way. She had the fire extinguisher blowing up into the air where the flames were at the top. She wasn't even going at the base of the fire. And after about 2 seconds of trying it, it's just like, well, this is useless. Let's go home.
This is broken.
Let it burn.
Yeah. The effects work in this film has spoken out to me that we need a darkness film. It is about time. The video game graphic novel series, not the band. But just the style of the effects and the tone at which they were put together, I think it is time for a darkness movie. I think there'd be a lot of visual cues that kind of carry over. Her apartment, very nice, as we've said.
Yeah, and as soon as you get into the apartment, she's drinking absinthe from a very old bottle, and hears some tapping. And gets really spooked and switches on all of the lights in the place. But we're given, I presume this means that light, you can't cast spells in the light, or you can't teleport in the light, or something in the light, because then all the lights explode and go out.
It was weird.
Maybe Belial has some self-image issues.
It was a cool effect, though, with the light slowly getting brighter, though. Because it's not an immediate thing. It's like it's a slow build.
But
and her attention got caught by it.
For the spectacle of it, like again, like Fraser, where it didn't make sense.
She then
also
gets
because Belial escaped when there's a big fire there by using a similar sort of magic. So it's not as if that magic can't be done in light. She just believes she's got to switch them all on.
Yeah, she's like, oh, do you know what? I bet those bulbs must cost you a fortune. Bang! Now I'm going to get you. I'm assuming, looking at my show notes, I'm assuming this is the point where she gets dragged into the ether and the queen tries to take her over, because I've just written in capitals, corruption of a ginger, and I'm not entirely sure why. So I'm going to assume that's when that was.
Yeah, this is that scene where all the lights explode and then she opens the fridge because those lights physically can't explode.
Suck it, witches.
But what can happen is when you go for your bag and your coat, is the fridge can slowly close on you. The most eerie fridge.
The fridge is the true villain.
Just slowly closing. And as soon as there's no lights, that's when she gets sucked into the ground by magic.
It's very abstract, that bit, wasn't it?
And then Calder jumps in and pulls her out. At which point she wakes up. She wakes up in his apartment, and he's also managed to get Mike O'Kane out of the cathedral into his apartment.
I really wondered about the Michael Caine bit.
Because I can't see little Elijah Wood carrying Michael Caine, 6'4" Michael Caine on his own, back to the apartment.
But the thing is, that means he's opened up that casket in the church, which had nuns walking around it. So it wasn't it's a big cathedral that people are in. Took the dead body out and just walked out of the cathedral into the middle of New York, put him into an expensive car, and drove to his flat.
To be fair, if it was Elijah Wood doing it, then they would probably just see the new Dolan taking things from work, like the old one did. It's just
taking the old Dolan, that's a little bit cheap. Well, this one's old, you got a new one. But the thing is, that's not it, because we've seen where the apartment is. Then he has to walk into the apartment, past a doorman, into the elevator to go up to his house.
What things has that doorman seen?
I have no idea how he got that body, and I think that's why they didn't explain it.
Yeah. There's one thing that I spotted, and it makes me uncomfortable because the implications are weird, and I know it's just a continuity error, but assuming it's an actual narrative thing, when she gets got, she's just got out of bed, so she's kind of mooching about. She's not got any shoes on. When she wakes up in his apartment, she's wearing massive high heels. So did Vin Diesel rescue her and then look around for high heels? And then he didn't even take the high heels with him. But when she wakes up, she'll want shoes and carry her back to his place and just leave the shoes there. He put the shoes on her and then put her in bed with the high heels on. Like,
he's just looking out for his girl.
it's so weird.
Bitch, you can't be seen without heels.
I know it's a continuity thing, but for some reason it just really.
I can see him doing it though. That's the kind of Calder that they've portrayed. I can see him like.
And then come out with some corny line about, "Oh, it's nice to see you in high heels," or something like that. He probably did the same for Michael Caine, honestly.
We never saw Michael Caine's feet, to be fair. He's probably got a nice long set of 9-inch heels on him.
Yeah, so she gets up and she's passes across a photo, which then the camera just stops on.
Mm.
And you don't really know. It's only the third time that I picked it up. It's a photo of the little bird that his child wanders around with a lot.
Mm.
But honestly, because I had to watch it 3 times to see that, most people on their first time just watching this for enjoyment, it's going to be a bit weird spending 2 or 3 seconds just focusing on this picture that has no relevance.
Yeah, and it is only an audience member and Vin Diesel himself that might pick out the relevance, unless it's like a special witch bird or something. But yeah, no, it is a weird thing to linger on. But I suppose she can't find a photograph of him with his family because they don't have cameras.
Well, no, she doesn't linger on it. She just walks past.
No, I suppose, yeah.
It's just the camera sticks on it.
And
then Dolan gets access to the FBI database like that. Like there's no... like they've got a direct link into the FBI database.
They
which Calder's able...
He says about making a new alias for Calder.
A full new identity for him.
There seems to be all of about 10 faces to go through in the FBI database, because about 4 down, he says, "Oh, it could be that one." Goes across 2 more. No, it's this one. Well, that's very convenient.
So yeah, from there he clocks. He kind of clocks who Belial is, and he's like, "Nope, I still need a memory kajigger." So he goes off to someone he knows who can get him a memory potion or trip back into his memory. He goes to a witch fashion show.
No, he goes.
No, that's miles along.
Oh, of course, they go to the friend first, and
Miranda.
She's copped it.
But what I do find about Chloe is the fact that
you can tell
she
he's watched
argues
it 3 times because he knows her name.
Yeah, she argues back to Calder when he says, "I need a memory potion." Like, "But my bar's destroyed. You destroyed it." And he goes, "I really need it." And she goes, "All right, I've got a friend."
I'll change my friend's personal address.
Every time she comes up against him, it's one argument and then she folds.
I think it's like it's what you said. It's the characters are there to get Calder from
A to B. Yeah.
And they don't have to be 3-dimensional to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they head off to Miranda's and they try and make a joke about her being a cat person, but it doesn't really pay off, I feel, because no one knows who Miranda is at this point.
Yeah.
And the fact that she's a cat person with a cat ringtone isn't, joke of the year material right there. And
then we get our first cat jump scare. Of the Very Movie podcast, which is a cliche. This
is something that I picked up on the second watch through, which is a bit creepy. They keep having these superficial moments where they write in an excuse for Vin Diesel to like physically touch Rose Leslie. So the first time it happens is she jumps back from this cat, and he like puts both of his hands on her waist, like as though that's the most comforting thing you can do to someone that's afraid. And then her friend is dead, so he puts his arm around her. Then later on, he's like, after they find out she's a dream walker, he's like, I'll show you, and he just takes her hand, as though she can't walk without holding his hand. And then when she dream walks in him, he takes her hand and he like spreads it across his chest. And we know she doesn't have to touch people because she dream walks in the fashion show. So there's loads of these little contrived reasons for him to physically touch her.
But that's how you show human emotion. It's the only way is through physical contact.
Yeah, it's
also, she's a cat person, and the only cat we see is the jump scare cat, as far as I remember.
It is. That is the only cat we see. I kind of wanted to see the corpse and be like, oh no, we had all this cat-based banter between the two of us that we were going to annoy you with. Oh, she's dead now. That's ruined now. That's gone.
She gets over that very quickly.
Yeah, she's like, oh, she's dead. Oh, she's a bitch anyway. Whatever. She had a nice apartment. Again, very nice. Again, I think the colouring is really good because they really pull out the green whenever there are plants on screen. They do a really good job of pulling out those green tones.
The reason for that scene. Can you tell me the reason for that scene? The scene where there's a jump scare, they go in, they can't find the herbs they need, and they find her friends murdered. And that's the whole scene.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the payoff. It's like the only reason that scene would be in there is if there was some diehard fan going, but if they make that at her bar, then surely they've got some stock wherever they grow it, and they could go back there. It's almost like it's
and that's the only reason I could think of as well,
rather than anything else.
Yeah, it felt very empty. The fact that you just wasted about 2 minutes watching this scene, which was completely unnecessary, and no one. If there's a bit more character development of my friends being murdered, I need to. Witches aren't as bad. Some witches are bad as well, and she has that realization. Maybe there would be a payoff, but there just doesn't seem to be that.
Yeah. They could have used that time to explain magic a bit better. Like, they have a witch there, having her appear knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Instead of every time magic happens, they're like, there's 4 types of magic, but there's also dark magic,
there's candle magic.
There's portal that will grab you out of the thing and put high heels on your feet.
Refrigerator magic.
Yeah. They should have maybe just spent that time. Do you guys see Rose Leslie's character as a love interest in this?
I know the film really wants me to. It's like Ashley in Mass Effect 3. I can tell it really wants to see her as a love interest, but nah, there's no emotional ground there. There's no.
It's just interesting because the closest they get is she like brushes his hand at the end, but they don't. Normally there'd be a definite.
Smooch.
There'd be a smooch, wouldn't there? But there's nothing. So I think the film is on the fence a bit.
Yeah.
She's quite a bit younger than him.
What, about 700 years younger than him?
I was going to say he's at like 840.
I don't know. I don't know if they're going for like a father type.
Yeah, I don't know.
Great grandfather.
Into the year 2000. So then they go to the witch fashion show, which is exactly as weird as a human fashion show, but there's green shit everywhere. That's about the only difference.
And all the witches.
But I'd also like to say that you skipped over the last scene to the witch fashion show. That's how unmemorable that last scene was. You just completely skipped and didn't even remember it.
It's because we mentioned it at the back end of a sentence previously. I was like, yeah, that pretty much covers that whole scene. That's everything.
Anyway, so we were at the witch fashion show, and Jess, we're walking through, and you have this sort of discovery that their witches are using magic to cover up their faces and make them look like supermodels as they walk through. And Chloe, the other witch, seems to be taken aback a bit like this, like she doesn't know that magic exists.
Yeah.
But what was weirder is they weren't just normal-looking people that were looking beautiful. They were all disfigured. Like there was one who they were scarred, and they weren't just normal witches being more attractive. They were specifically people that looked like they'd had accidents or something that disfigured them to do it.
Which would be a really cool application of magic to find out more about beyond them turning up, and Rose Leslie just being weirdly antagonistic to the woman who's kind of in charge. I get really angry when I see people using chairs wrong. Like, there's the reason you've got an arm at either side and a space in the front is that's where your legs go. Stop sticking your legs over the side, because there's no way that's comfortable. For no one is that comfortable to sit over the side of a chair with wooden arms. Bullshit.
That's what annoyed you about this film?
Yes, some other things, but mostly that.
Just sitting in a chair badly.
Just stop using chairs wrong. It's not hard, Hollywood.
This whole scene as well felt very wasted. It was like, we know there's no danger to Calder because he can't die.
Yeah, it's quite funny him going, I need something from you, and then she just poofs him in the face with paralysis smoke, and it's like, Calder, stop wandering into places and demanding shit of witches. It's like he watched the Men in Black and went, yeah, Men in Black just wander in places and say, I want something, and they generally tend to do it, I'll just do that. It's like, no, they're witches, they don't like you, mate, so they're going to keep trying to set you on fire and tie you up and throw shit at you. Just ask nicely.
But he did seem to have some sort of... There's an allude to a previous relationship he had with these people, which is why he was able to go there. So he should understand that it's either that dangerous that they try and capture him every time, or he's completely caught off guard because this is the first time, and I don't believe it would be the first time, that these would be really bad witches. It just... I don't know, with the illusion of that, you feel there should be more payoff.
Yeah.
Apart from very powerful shisha smoke.
I did. I quite like that. This is one thing I actually really like about this film. It does something you think is nonsensical, like Rose Leslie just turns up in his dreams, and this you have to think back to the first time you've seen it. She turns up in his dream and she's like, "Come back, you can't be in here," and you kind of think, "Oh, that's stupid. Why is she in there? Did she just willed herself into his head?" And then afterwards, it's like, "Oh yeah, no, she wills herself into people. She's a dreamwalker." It's like, it does something you think is stupid, and because you know it's a bit of a schlocky film, you think it's going to have a really stupid reason for doing it, and it does actually have a legit reason. It might not be a very clever reason, but it does have a reason for doing it. It surprises you with how thought out it is, I think, which I do quite like.
And she was like, dreamwalking, everyone knows that's an evil magic.
Yeah. Candle magic, refrigerator magic, dream magic, dark magic, fire magic, earth magic, wind magic, water magic.
Yeah, mainly because the only person who seems to know all of the magics is Calder himself.
Yeah.
The Witch Council seems to be confused by half the magics. Chloe seems to be confused by half the magics.
Oh, cake magic. We forgot about cake magic.
Cake magic, yeah, and I bet you
the baker.
Max, the 14th level warlock.
But you have to be at least level 12 to unlock cake magic, be fair. Yeah, there was something weird I noticed kind of while the two of them were interacting with each other, and it's that his skin colour is exactly the mid-tone between her skin colour and her hair colour.
That is an odd thing.
It was just a very strange thing. I think it's because they were surrounded by all white. I was like, oh, if you took that and added them together, you'd get that. It was a very weird colour pattern to see on film.
That's a weird thing to say right there.
She kicks Vin Diesel and Vin Diesel goes flying. I thought that was like career goals.
Yeah.
Well, it shows he wasn't super strong then.
Yeah.
Fraser will not let that go.
Of course not. Why does he get super strength? There's absolutely no reason for that. And in a way, the movie may have done better if he wasn't super strong. If he had to think about what he did in a fight or something like that, instead of just going, well, I've got this fight. Like Belial said earlier, it doesn't take much for you to get in a bar fight when you know you can't get hurt.
Yeah. He does. I think physically though, Vin Diesel is pretty good at selling hand-to-hand combat. I think he's one of those actors who can use his size, because you've got the thin, fast actors like Keanu Reeves, who's very good at doing that fast choreography.
The John Wick stuff.
Exactly. And then you've got the bigger ones like Tom Hardy and Vin Diesel, and The Rock, who use their speed very well in their choreography, their size very well in their choreography, and they make it look like most of those hits collide. I know a lot of that comes down to the stunt choreographer, not necessarily the actor, but there is a certain responsibility on themselves to be able to sell those like swings and get the rest of their body in motion and pull the right face while they're doing it and not look like they've got everything meticulously planned out. So it was quite good just seeing Vin Diesel smack some dudes.
But you were right about the corny how she got into the dream, because my notes do read, how is Chloe doing that? And then afterwards I went, Dreamwalker Ex Machina.
Yeah. How is she doing that? Oh, that's how she's doing that. Okay then.
Explanation afterwards.
That does mean she's able to do that the whole time and is totally giving him the runaround on the ingredient for that potion, though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They then dive into his dream, I believe, once he's out of there. And we see more flashbacks of him in Skyrim.
With
hair. Answering the eternal question, what colour is Vin Diesel's hair? We know the answer now. He is also a ginger.
He has black hair.
No, they don't jump straight back in.
Where do they go between then?
Because they have the scene in the alleyway where Sam said that they hold hands, basically talk about her being a dream walker.
Yeah.
And they hold hands and he says, I'll show you your history, and runs off. At which point, it flashes to one of the most meaningless scenes I found in this movie. It was Max exiting the bakery, the level 14 warlock. Goes out the bakery and he's face to face with Belial.
Yeah.
Level 15.
And all the lights smash out. And says, we've got a special plan for you. You shouldn't have given me away.
Yeah.
You betrayed our kind. And I honestly thought it was really saying I could smell garlic, that's not garlic, and crab apples count as a betrayal of your kind. Because quite honestly, that's like if you went to someone and they gave you answer these riddles free.
Yeah.
It was that kind of loose. And yeah, it was also a scene when you said earlier where he just stares someone dead in the eye.
Yeah.
There just seemed to be that scene, and again, there just seemed to be no reason why one, Belial would think it was Max who sold him out. Two, why that information was really needed, because quite honestly, I think Belial wanted to be found.
Yeah.
And yeah, then that's it. That scene closes down after he screams, and it goes into where the witch's court is.
Yeah, and then he kind of shows in the history, and he's like,
is this where she's like, I can't do it, because I actually have a genuine character reason why, is because I hurt my brother by mistake when I was younger, so I actually genuinely have a reason why I don't want to do this. And he was like, go on, and she was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Again, back to my point of one argument. All it takes is one argument against her, and she'll do it.
So she acquiesces, and he is then sent back into his memories. And just thinking, we remember going back to, I think it was when he found his wife and child. This is actually when he's back at the fashion show. There's a bit that for some reason kind of sticks in my mind, is when he's gone back home to find his wife and child dead from the Black Death, the plague, and he kicks the door in. And I remember thinking, why are you doing that? Like, it's as though he's got a call from one of his neighbours, like, mate, I've just seen Black Death leaving your place. And he's urgently run back and kicked the door in. Like, if they're dead now, they've been sick for a while, buddy. Like,
yeah, but no, that's not. I don't think that's a memory. I think that was a hallucination.
It just felt very much like, I don't know. It just for some reason it stuck out in my head as being a little bit odd. Goes back to his memory, and to be fair, I was concerned that we were going to go back and get a flashback to basically the beginning of the movie again, but they kind of pick up where the opening left off.
There's that second group of people that for some reason didn't go in with the first group. They're like, you guys go, we'll
back up.
We'll be in a minute.
No, I think it's because he fell down the hole by himself at the start that it took them a while to get down there.
Right, so it's the survivors from upstairs. I suppose it makes sense once she was down, if the other witches were like, nope, we're out. And
what I don't understand about this is it's supposed to be his memory, and he's dead at that point.
He's pretty much out.
He's not. He's cognizant. Like, he's there enough to scream when he's in pain.
That was like slightly after. It's parts of his memories.
It could be. I could be arguing. I think that
he could see, but there's no real reason why he would be able to see them.
Do you notice where it doesn't matter what he's wearing in the modern day? When he goes back into his memories, he gets a coat because it's cold where he is. Whenever Vin Diesel walking around his own dreams, he gets a coat.
Calder has clothes magic.
Clothes magic. That is much further than dark magic.
That's the most evil magic.
That's the most evil magic. Second only to refrigerator magic. So he
also whenever he goes to the tree, he gets a coat. Whenever he goes back further with his family, he's literally the person. He's not looking at himself. He's literally the person wearing what he is wearing. So there seems to be kind of a disconnect as to going back into your dream, whether you're going to be looking at yourself, whether you're going to be looking at memories that you shouldn't be able to see, or whether you're going to be acting them out yourself.
He goes back, and we discover that the heart of the witch is still alive. If the heart is destroyed, then Calder screams. Presumably, if the heart is destroyed and the witch dies, then Calder dies. Which, Vin Diesel, I mean, he sold the screaming there. When they were burning the heart, that was some excellent vocal work. People take the piss out of him for being a voice actor because of Groot, but he nails the sounds of being burnt alive without being in fire, and the actual physical effects on his body. I don't know if it was. I couldn't quite catch if it was prosthetic or special digital effects, but the look of him burnt and everything was very impressive.
I think for me it was more the coincidence of he's like, we'll finish this witch now, and then he stabs the heart, but he does it slowly.
Zip. And the fire. Oh, I better stop that.
There's a couple of moments that I don't know. To me, it come off almost comedic.
Oh shit! A heart.
He was like,
it's dead.
Heart in the fire, heart out the fire, in the fire, now out the fire.
Yeah.
Also, when he puts the heart in the fire, you see the blades gone all the way through the heart. And it's just like, no, don't worry, we can repair that later after I put the heart in my pocket and say she's dead.
But that is exactly what he does. He pockets the heart, thinking it would make sense to keep Calder around. And
he did in a sealed door. To
be honest, he did in a sealed door. And to be honest, I think it makes sense. Like, oh shit, we got an immortal dude in our lap. Yeah, okay.
It does, but
don't lie about it.
Calder reacts so naively.
Yeah.
He's like, how has he not come across betrayal in 800 years? Because he's like, it's like they've personally affronted him.
Yeah. Yeah, he lashes out at poor little Elijah Wood. It's not good.
Yeah, and by being betrayed by the humans, he just then, oh, everyone's against me. Everyone, no one can help me. I can't trust anyone anymore because a few other people have betrayed me. Everyone's in with them. That's my character development for this bit, is I hate everyone now.
Yeah, he has a tantrum, basically.
He has a tantrum. He storms away from Elijah Wood and says, I think Rose Leslie calls after him, this isn't who you are. I kind of feel like it is. I feel like that is exactly who he is.
How would she know? She's known him for like a day.
He stomps off to find our good friend Max, who is now been eaten by a tree.
This was annoying because you kind of find out Belial had the heart all along.
Yeah, there's no discovery as to how the heart was recovered.
No, as if it was. Yeah, I mean, you would have thought the heart would be in an incredibly secure place if the Axe and the Cross, who seem to own a lot of cathedrals and have quite a bit of power, they probably had a safe place to put the heart.
To be fair, it was kept in like some secret place that was marked with the same ostentatious
It was in her
petrified wood
It's in a fridge.
fridge. That's why it could do magic, fridge magic.
Also, were we told why Calder knew where to find Belial, the Heart, and the Queen? Max? Because he just gets in the car and drives.
I don't remember. To be fair, that was actually like 5 days after the last scene. He's been driving around the whole of New York looking for... Oh, shit, there they are. It's only taken me 5 days. That was lucky.
It can't be 5 days because,
But I think-
Michael Caine's only got 2.
But I think Belial wanted to be found, so that's a plot hole that's easily covered. Because I think Belial needed him there so the Queen could take her immortality
He
back.
texted him his address, like...
Texted it.
Yeah.
Find me
Facebook
here, I have
Messenger.
your heart.
So he turns out... And that's when we get the sucker punch. You're just holding my immortality for me. And then Belial pops up to pretending to be Rose Leslie and waits super late until super early until he like tries to catch him on fire in the face. I kind of feel like Rose Leslie has the opportunity to get really close to Vin Diesel and shove him into the tree or do some more damage instead of going which he immediately solved by throwing a knife at his neck. Maybe.
No, he didn't.
Shield spell.
Because he throws his gun on the floor and he dives on the floor, which Belial picks up the shotgun and starts shooting the immortal man.
No, that's right.
At which point, then he gets a knife to the neck.
Probably could have used that shield spell, but there you go. But that is close enough for Tree Queen to help herself to his immortality and suck all the immortality juices out. And then she kind of pulls apart Max's face, which would have been a really cool effect had it not been such an egregious jump cut to where the hands were, because that really showed it was 2 different shots, whereas if they just cut to a different angle, then it would have looked really cool, where she pulls Max's face off and it's her face underneath.
What that really reminded me of was the Mission Impossible mask reveals.
Yeah.
That's literally all I can think when watching it for the first time. It's Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise is behind the mask. And that's actually the first time I really noticed that she's got an extra spine coming out the top of the back of her neck.
Yeah, you get that shot from the side as she comes out of it.
I like that spine. I thought that was good design.
So she pops out. She Kiai's him up into a telephone tower.
She's basically aliened her way out of Max, isn't she?
She does alien her way out of his face.
And now Calder's starting to take pain.
Yeah, she hits him. She knocks him into a girder thing, which gets him through one shoulder. Although it's a magic girder because it does move to his other shoulder in the next scene. He kind of drops to the floor and tries to shotgun her, and she turns into flies and disappears. I don't know why
doesn't she kill him?
I don't know why she doesn't kill him then.
No.
To be honest.
Because later on we can see those flies easily kill people.
Yeah, I mean, each one carries the Black Death.
She's done it twice now. She was stood over him before he set his pitch on fire, and she just waited. Then this bit, she's like, bye.
Yeah. He then goes back, and for some reason the curse on my cocaine has been lifted. Oh, because Belial died. That's
because
why.
Belial died. Yeah,
that's fine.
There is a reason for that. It didn't randomly happen.
And he's fine. He's a bit blue, dubbity-dubbity, but he's all right. He's getting there.
He drank a random potion
But
because
he's
magic.
He's still like, you need to fight, and I think
Yeah.
it would have been so much cooler for their character relationship if he was like, well, if you're not immortal anymore, you should go and live a life. Like, you could die.
Man, you're a pussy. Don't bother. Like, without the immortality, you're nothing. Like, you're just gonna get creamed. Don't go, man.
But I think he's also saying that you're our only hope because you've done it once before.
Yeah.
And if you don't, everyone's going to die. You won't have much of a future if everyone dies anyway.
Do you think he's told that story badly? He's like, yeah, but last time you told us how you beat her before with all the backflips, and then you chopped her head off, and then there was the thing with the flamethrower, and then it was amazing. Just do that again. He's like, oh yeah, that is how I said I did that last time.
I did not embellish that story at all.
Every time he tries to pick up a new woman, it gets like an extra move in there.
And
there
then
were
the cage
4
came
ninjas.
down.
There were 4 witch ninjas, and I killed them first.
So he decides he's got to go out. He's got to fight and save the day. So the witch bailiff is now actually going to do some witch hunting for once. Goes to his
Ghost
Brofist door.
ostentatious, yeah.
Brofist door and gets out his sword, which
It's
he
really
never named.
It's really literally named again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like I never gave it a name, but the witches call it Witch Killer. Okay, a Witch Slayer. That's good.
No, they called it Hexenberg.
Yeah, which he
At
translates
least they go
as.
to Latin. Yeah.
He translates as Witch Slayer. And yeah, he tools up. And it did really make me laugh when he said, "When I get hurt, I stay hurt." Because he's literally not hurt from the wound in his shoulder, which has moved to the other shoulder, by the way. And he's like, "When I get hurt, I stay hurt." And it's like, Finn, you're in pain, remember? Finn, come on, man.
Like
You've been stabbed through the shoulder about 20 minutes ago.
So yeah.
I do think it would put the final battle down a fair bit if he was already carrying a shoulder injury while just trying to double-hand a sword.
Yeah, I mean it's a bit too much to hope for District 9-esque character degradation throughout the course of a film, but maybe a bandage or a plaster, just show that is still there.
Then he psychically knows the witch's plan.
He knows the witch's plan.
She's used the plague thing before. That's her signature move.
She'll defo do the tree thing again.
Tree thing
that was
again.
That was her move.
Yeah, she couldn't have thought of a better plan. Coming back.
I loved the reference to Sin City in how terrifying Elijah Wood is, where he drives his car down an alleyway and Elijah Wood is stood in a dark alley in his full priest garb, staring at them.
I feel like he stood there for the whole film.
He's been there are several drug dealers who have gone in that alley and gone, "Oh fucking nope," and back straight back out again. But yeah, so they pick up Elijah Wood. And yeah, off they go to the Witches' Council. All the council's dead. The Sentinel's asleep.
Yeah, so the Witch Council had one scene, I think.
Yeah, one scene.
Oh dear.
Not even a very good scene, to be honest. And
Well,
they go off.
at least we know that the Witch Queen can do physical violence beyond flies, because they were dead from
smushed.
mortal wounds, weren't they? They weren't like fly dead.
At which point,
then they go into the cave where all the witches have been incarcerated. At which point both of them ask, "Where are the witches?" So he throws a magic liquid at the wall that makes it all light up.
Yeah. I'd like to know how specific that is. Like if that is specifically a limestone rock wall quarry reveal potion. He's got like a bunch of really specific potions lining his jacket.
It's a cool idea having them in the walls, though.
Yeah, that was really cool, and it was a good visual effect as well. I like when he uses the sword to cut into the wall and then pushes his hand in. You get this rippling blue energy in the actual cracks in the rockwork that moves and reacts to him moving inside the wall. I thought that looked really cool.
Were you not
See, I
thinking
have
the
a
whole
big
time?
problem with that.
You're blunting that blade, friend.
Oh yeah, that blade's gone.
That blade is gone. Yeah.
But I have got a big problem with that scene.
Yeah.
Because he's mortal again. In all facets, and yet he's able to punch through a bit of damaged rock and root around and pull a body out.
Well, he lost his immortality, Fraser. He didn't lose his super strength.
Yeah, that was the Witch
super
King
strength?
he got the super strength from.
Well, where super strength? I mean, either the witch gave it to him and took him away, which at this point he doesn't have, or there's just no explanation.
Roids.
Is it super strength magic, which wasn't explained through the movie?
Roid
Do you
magic.
think the Witch Queen was sat there watching, going, "Shit, I told him that the invulnerability thing was from me. I was hoping it would psych him out if he thought it was me that made him invulnerable. I think he's starting to clock that he's actually naturally invulnerable."
That shoulder wound's cleared up very well. He must be invulnerable.
The magical moving shoulder wound.
And then he digs out the earlier murderer out of the wall, puts him on the ground and says, knowing that this was going to be the plan from the start, only at this point saying to Chloe, you're gonna have to jump in and kill him inside.
I don't understand why they couldn't just put a bullet in his brain.
Because you've got to kill his mind.
Yeah, that would kill his mind. I'm sure that would.
No, super strength, you see, magic. All of those things that make this movie worth watching. They're all the reasons why you've got to go in.
Yeah, I like how his response was every chain has a weak link, and he goes for the one who recently killed a Dolan for the Queen. Doesn't matter how cognizant he was at the time, because he seems like a bit of a stoner.
Not the witch that didn't pay their taxes in the corner.
Yeah, not the one who's like, hey man, look, this is not my fault.
I don't have a horse in this race.
Instead, he goes for the unpredictable crack addict.
I'm not on board with the whole fly apocalypse.
So,
you do you, man. You do you.
So, she jumps into his head to try and sneak up on him. She fucks that up.
Well, they have a quick explanation before where it's just like Chloe says, "Are you starting to care about me?" And Calder goes back, "I've got used to you," which I just thought at that time is 2 days. 2 days before he said that. The 56th Dolan, 50 years before he said something like that. No, 2 days.
Maybe he
That's
likes
all
redheads.
Maybe he does. His wife was a redhead. He was a redhead, so...
I thought he had black hair.
No, he had like dark ginger. He had a similar thing. There was like a bit of muddy brown ginger going on.
That's 700 times faster.
So, there is a bit where there is a noise, and they all look up. There is a prominent close-up of Elijah Wood as he looks up and down this cave, and I was like, they have a cave troll. And I realised I might have to go to some kind of organised therapy to remove Elijah Wood from Lord of the Rings, because it's really deep in there.
It's not fair on the actor.
It's not fair on the actor, and he's a very good actor. I keep getting him confused with Tobey Maguire in Sin City. I keep thinking it's one or the other in Sin City, but it is Elijah Wood.
And then we find out how strong the Sentinel is as Calder runs into the huge Sentinel and it falls to pieces.
So slightly less strong than a Warhammer model.
Yeah, it's not great. It falls to pieces, but then it kind of glues
it quickly
itself
gets back
together
together.
again.
Yeah, it quickly reassembles itself and then goes, "Oh, I'm going after it." And Calder realizes he cannot run into this all day, and he's got to now mount it and shotgun it in its back.
Honestly, the best plan there was to take one of the bits when it was trying to reassemble and just run away.
Yeah.
And have it like kite it round while she was in the
One of its legs.
I got your skull.
There is something very strange about seeing Elijah Wood fire a gun. It's a bit like Alan Rickman in Die Hard. You can tell there's just something wrong with the universe with that person using a gun.
This is really annoying because Elijah Wood, with the reveal that's about to happen, Elijah Wood had so many chances
just shoot her.
to fuck everyone up, and he didn't. He could have shot Calder after he was not immortal anymore. He could have shot Rose Leslie when she was in that dude's mind. He could have shot the Dolan. He had so many opportunities.
Yeah.
Sorry, he could have shot a Dolan. That's himself.
The Dolan, Michael Caine.
Oh, the 36th Dolan, yeah. Although that wasn't going to get much out of it, really. But yeah, killing Chloe while she's on the ground in someone else's mind to keep the chain going.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's a bit of a weak reveal. It kind of ineffectual. She manages to kill Woody in his mind and break the chain, while Calder steals the little.
It's a bit weird that the witch
Scorpion
wasn't like,
King thing.
"Oh, there's a guy missing. I'll just link them back up together."
Yeah,
again."
it's like his understanding of this great witch chain is like how Christmas lights were before they started to put them on parallel circuits. Like, oh shit, one bulb's gone. The whole thing is down, and you've got to find that
Do you think
dodgy
she's at
bulb.
the other end of the cave? Like, shit, guys, which one is it?
Which one is it?
Searching through.
No, it's fine.
But it also seems that one's gone. There seems to be hundreds in this cave. One's gone, and that's it. No more magic. And then Chloe gets put into the chain by the Queen, and all of a sudden it starts back up again.
And I feel
she
like
had the exact right amount of witches there to make this work.
I feel like they missed the opportunity to have, because she's a dream walker, have her invade the dreams of all of the witches in New York and use their power as well. Like, if she has that a bit specific ability that isn't used very often, I think if she was able to like bring people into the dream,
All the good witches.
all the good witches in the
All the
surrounding
witches
area.
that haven't broken the law.
Yeah. So Calder destroys the thing by taking the little device out and smashing it. Then he goes to fight the Witch Queen. Again, the visual effects on her are fantastic, but when he was actually fighting her and she was in a long shot, she was CGI. She wasn't physically there, which tells me that the prosthetics must have been way too advanced for her to be able to move in reacting to a fight scene. But the problem is they did that thing where the CGI on the Witch Queen had that unnatural grey to it, where black on the CGI model is blue-grey compared to the true black in the shot she's been composited into. So that looked really gammy.
She also didn't use any magic when she was fighting him.
Yeah, she was just
it was all
scratching
just
him.
slaps.
Yeah, bitch slaps.
Well, the thing is, she only seemed to have the advantage when it was pitch dark. Then, as soon as he brought in any type of light,
Yeah.
and then went by iron by fire, and his sword went alight as well, she was just like, "Well, I've got nothing. I can't do any sort of magic now, can I?" Oh.
Just some fire would have. He's mortal now, isn't he? So.
So fire, flies, a shield for yourself, or
I'm gonna recommend that Belial is the next witch monarch because he was so much more effective.
Have
than
his shit
she
together. Super Last of Us imagery when she pulls him into green, overgrown New York.
Which was weird because it was like, I've seen your domain and it was shit tree.
Yeah, it was gross shit tree. Yeah, but again, that says to me that the witches want to return the world to a more druidic, natural state, which is a shame we didn't. Because to be honest, I was looking at it and thinking, yeah, it looks pretty good. That looks much greener and a bit more peaceful. There's no flies or corpses.
You're saying that, but you're having to make such a jump to get to that conclusion because nothing is explained.
Yeah,
There's just this patch of New York is prettier.
It's just one scene after another all the way. There's no wider world. It's literally Calder's story from
A to B.
For about all of 3 days. This shows 3 days of Calder's life.
Felt like it was 3 days long.
We then have the Witch Queen, Gara of the Sand, sub-AQ Vin Diesel in Flies, and he crumples to the floor until he's inspired to fight by his dead family, which is something that happened.
He didn't have that inspiration before. He forgot.
He forgot to be inspired, and then he remembered. He was reminded to be inspired.
He remembered he had a D8 from the bard.
But for a man who's no longer immortal, basically slowly putting those 3 rocks that he got at the start of the movie into the water, the weather runes.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he jumps up like a spring chicken, gets his sword out, and then goes for it.
I think it was a cool callback
like
to that earlier device, but yeah, he does kind of get his strength back out of nowhere.
And he throws the sword as well, which is like the least reliable way to get it into the witch.
Yeah, if that did not work, he's not going to say, time out, guys, where's my sword?
It would have been cool if Elijah Wood had jumped in front. That would have been a cooler end for him, I think.
Mm.
Because it felt a bit shit that she didn't continue to use him. I know she hates humans, but...
Yeah, it was a bit Magneto, Mystique. Oh, you used to be so pretty, and then he just discards her because she's not a mutant anymore. I
feel like the witch would have continued using him.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the weather runes, quite honestly. I don't usually mind the whole, at the start of a film, you show something, it becomes a part of the film later on. But this just felt like they started at the last scene of the film, working back, and then they go, actually, before this scene, we're going to do the whole back in time at the start of the movie. We need somewhere where the weather runes comes in because we need lightning at the end of the movie. Let's put a airplane scene in with a young witch, and let's say he picks up the hostess. That's the whole reason.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the actual visual effects, of the runes, but it did kind of seem like, how have you had those in your pocket, because surely you've had them clumped together in your pocket. There's no way lying bleeding out on the floor. You've gone to 3 separate isolated pockets to pull out those runes.
Oh, he scolds the witch, and he's like, you just had them jammed together.
The score in the point where he throws the sword and it gets electrocuted is fantastic. Just to bring up the amazing Steve Jablonsky, who was actually just celebrated the birth of his second child, his son. So congrats, Steve, if for some reason you're listening to this. Steve Jablonsky has done a lot of music, especially recently. He's done a lot of work with Michael Bay, Transformers films. However, he has also done the incredible score to the Gears of War franchise. Gears of War 2, Armored Prayer, is one of my favourite video game songs. I think it's a beautiful piece of music, really Starship Troopers-esque, a bit over the top and impactful. But I thought the score was fantastic, and it's easily something I could quite happily kind of listen to in my downtime as part of my soundtrack collection.
It was cool, but the moment was ruined because I couldn't help but think at the time, like, well, if she's gonna go, oh shit, lightning! No one's ever hit me with lightning. Then surely someone could have just tased her.
Yeah, I think seeing Elijah Wood tase a witch to death would have been everything I need to see in my life. She's down.
I'm the witch queen. Sit down.
Well, that's how you get rid of flies, isn't it? You put up one of those electric things and they just buzz into it.
But the Witch Queen dies, sort of, and we see the immense cloud of plague-carrying flies just drop onto the New York streets. And from that point, there was no health crisis.
Someone had to sweep those flies up.
Someone's job was getting a little dustbuster and hoovering up bubonic plague flies.
Barry the street cleaner had a bad day.
So let's not lie to ourselves. The bubonic plague carried. Like, it didn't wipe out all of humanity, but someone ate one of those flies. It landed in someone's hot dog or in their coffee.
Well, Michael Caine had a moment with a fly.
He squished it on his book. It's like, do you have any idea how infectious that shit is? Are you an idiot? Like, it's dead. There's
a cure to the bubonic plague nowadays, anyway.
Oh, yeah, so but the whole film was pointless.
Well, if it went through, then we would have ended up with one of those disaster movies in 2017.
Oh dear! But no, it was she dies, and he's about to kill the heart, and he does that thing where he's like, he clearly wants her to stop him, because he raises the sword right above his head. It's like, dude, if you put that much wind up on that sword, you're going to stab yourself in the foot. Like, just have your sword just over it and then stab it.
It's like in video games where they have to wind up a move so you know it's a power move.
Yeah.
You have to have a chance to block it.
Yeah, it was like he raised a sword and he was like, I'm going to stab the heart. She's like, okay, good, that'll kill her. I'm going to do it. Okay, yeah, do it. This is it. I'll die.
If you want, I'll do it for you. I'll do it.
Or what you think he wanted Rose Leslie to stop him?
Once I destroy this, it's all over.
And she's like, yeah, you probably should.
Okay. Okay, look, I'm gonna be straight with you. I don't want to die. But yeah, so she saves him and he hides the heart.
But she saves him by saying there's worse evils out there waiting for you to be gone.
Yeah.
Which really meant at the time they thought, we've got a sequel on our hands, guys.
Technically, I mean, the sequel was already in production shortly after the release of the film. The plan was always for this to become a franchise, but since it was panned, there's not been much news on the sequel, but it's not been canned, so it's kind of in production hell at the moment.
Well, what I didn't get was, why did he automatically become immortal again once the witch was down? Because she never gave him that immortality back.
No, it's nonsense.
Is immortality like the loot that a bad guy leaves, and if you walk over the corpse, you just take it? He auto-looted.
I am the one defending this film, and I'm telling you, there is no reason that happened. That was bullshit. He was just like, oh, I'm immortal again. Okay.
But to be fair, like, if she didn't do that, then basically, as soon as he threw the sword in and she dissolved into dust, he would have just died on the spot.
That would have been cool, though, because then Rose Leslie would be the next.
Well, I suppose that would be very fitting for this film, with no explanation as to why he's just keeled over and died.
Yeah, Rose Leslie, the last witch hunter.
I think there should have been an ethical moment where he was like, can I kill the heart? Because then I'll die. And then you just see him keel over, and Rose Leslie stood over the heart with a knife. Like,
Got a hammer, just crack.
Just looking at his body like, fucking tragic. He died a hero.
Shotgun in her hands.
And that's it. I mean, the film closes out with Mike O'Kane is now he's managed to avoid retirement. And last witch hunter Vinny D is kind of working on his own now with Rose Leslie. They've hidden a heart somewhere, which is Vin Diesel, so you know it's in that fucking wardrobe in his house.
It's in the fridge.
It's in the fridge. And yeah, the film, obviously the anticipation was there for a sequel. Film closes out with a cover of Paint It Black, which is an okay cover, I thought. And yeah, that kind of runs out the film. There
wasn't really much closure to it, really. It's not.
No.
It ended exactly in the same position as it was in the beginning.
Yeah,
but with +1 love interest.
It's
gained.
schlocky cheesiness, but the first time I found it really aggravating, and I really didn't enjoy it. The second time I watched it, I had a blast. I kind of let myself go and just enjoy the stuff as it was coming up, and the things that were bad about it, most of the time I would enjoy because they're a bit shit. Like the level 14 Warlock was genuinely entertaining to me. The last time it annoyed me, this time I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
I had perpetual grimace face on when I was watching this.
There just had to be more to the characters, honestly. There just had to be more depth into it for it to be... It had the essence of a good movie, I would guess. It's just... A few scenes didn't need to be there, and you just needed to develop the characters a bit more so you actually felt for them. Because if Chloe died 3/4 of the way through the movie, I would not have cared.
Yeah.
Quite honestly. And the only other person I was kind of attached to was Michael Caine.
Michael Caine. Yeah.
He was generic good guy, though.
He was Alfred.
Yeah. I mean, they just had a good relationship at the start. And that's the most attached I got to a character was that relationship they had at the start. Which isn't going to carry you through another hour of the movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, one thing that really stands out to me is, this was originally supposed to be directed by Timur Bekmambetov, a name I always get wrong, who is he's a big producer. He worked on a lot of crazy... He's kind of like Tim Burton, but without the Tim Burton pretensions. He produced films like 9, the animated one with Elijah Woodnet, but he directed Day Watch and Night Watch. He directed Wanted. He does a lot of those very zany, kind of Eastern European-y feeling action films. Very talented director, and he was originally slated to direct. It was then taken over by Breck Eisner, who has possibly tonally the most varying film career I've seen in a while. This is a man who's done a bit of TV work, and he did a made-for-TV movie. He then made Sahara with Matthew McConaughey, Penelope Cruz, and Steve Zahn, and a bunch of other actors, which is like a zany kind of very 2000s Indiana Jones style action adventure. He then made the 2010 remake of The Crazies, which is a fantastic film. Like, in every right, The Crazies remake is a brilliant horror film in its own right. It's great as a remake. It's brilliant as an action film. The whole thing, I think, is it's probably up there in my favorite action films, favorite horror films generally. And then he made this, which tonally is very different.
It was a very well made bad script.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the two writers, well, there's the three writers. One of them was the aforementioned Corey Goodman, who has had a more varied writing career. I think I've got some of the things he's worked on here. I mean, he did Priest, and I think he did one of the Underworld movies after this. So he didn't do as much. I think he was more of a story writer. I think the script was mostly fleshed out by two others, and they've done Gods of Egypt. They also did the Power Rangers movie. They also did Dracula Untold, which Dracula Untold was a really good film, but tonally it's very similar to this. There's a lot in common with this movie, I think. It's just the quality of the content that changes. I think good director, bad script, to be absolutely honest. This was one of the films to be affected by... It was delayed. The production was delayed by the death of Paul Walker, because it had a knock-on effect to Fast and the Furious 7 that then knocked this one on, because obviously Vin Diesel was working on both projects. And yeah, as it stands at the moment, I mean, it made double its money back, but it wasn't very well reviewed. I think it's sitting at around 17% or something on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, it's the
so
kind
it's
of
not
thing
good.
you could cut a really nice trailer from, because it looks nice.
The trailer looked great. I mean, the trailer came out, it must have been around the same time as that Seven Samurai, was it? The Keanu Reeves one?
Or Seven Ronin.
That's it, the one. He fights like he fights the dragon in the trailer. And that looked really good. It was not. But it looked good in the trailer. Okay, so let's go around the table, starting with you, Fraser. Kind of in brief, how would you fix the film? What changes would you make to improve The Last Witch Hunter?
Like I said, pretty much through it, it's just give the characters a bit more depth, a bit more feeling in there. Have more of an emotional attachment. If you're going to make a relationship there, make the relationship. And just have the characters feel like they exist in the world. They're not there just for Calder to go through. So yeah, it's mainly just writing in the characters a bit more for me.
Okay. And Sam?
I think I would have spent more time on the villain, the Witch Queen, put more magic in, explain how the magic works a bit more. And if I'm honest, I think it was probably... Calder probably needed a bit more working on. I don't think his personality was enough to hold. Because the first thing you see of him is he's a bit of a dick.
Yeah.
And...
There's no more development
you
from
don't
that,
really get anything beyond that from him.
Yeah. I have two changes that I think would infinitely make this film better. The first, Rose Leslie is not... Elijah Wood is not the turncoat. It's Rose Leslie. I think someone who gets shit on as a witch, she needs to spend the film being told, look, witches are put in their place because they're shit minglers. And then the Queen says to her, look, you can be free. You can be a witch and have all your freedom, and this is the world we're trying to build. It's going to be amazing. And then she has to actively choose, and then she either turns on Vin Diesel or she turns on him and then comes back to his side at the very end. But give her journey more meaning, because I don't feel like we got any more out of Elijah Wood's character with his turning at the end. But we could have got a lot more out of Rose Leslie if that choice was put on the table. The other choice, and the other change that will absolutely improve the movie 100%, and I'm sorry, Vinny D, Nicolas Cage as the main character.
Oh, God.
No.
Would have been amazing. Like, imagine Wicker Man level attitudes to all of the characters and the witches and his powers. It would have been amazing.
He could not have pulled that one off.
Have you seen The Sorcerer's Apprentice?
Yes, I have.
Right, in The Sorcerer's... It's quite a controversial opinion now.
Okay.
In the Sorcerer's Apprentice, he plays like a similar... He's like a very old wizard type who's stuck around, and he was from the olden times, and he's now in the modern day with it, like a younger sidekick.
Yeah.
And he is fantastic.
Yeah, he's very good in that.
He is brilliant. It is the only film of his that I like his performance in, other than Face Off. And I think that actually that could have worked.
No, I don't want Sorcerer's Apprentice Nicolas Cage. I want Wicker Man Nicolas Cage. I need Wicker Man Nicolas Cage in this movie, just being an absolute arsehole, being rude to everyone he meets, being completely just this blustering force of impotent rage. I think it would change the tone of the film, but it would make it so good.
So what you're saying to make the film better is not to make the film better. You just go for a huge gamble.
Yeah, it's not. Look, it's not the most definite thing, but if you can just convince Nicolas Cage, and I think he's probably working for a bit cheaper at the moment, convince him to just do Wicker Man in this film, put on even in the intro, give him a great big ginger beard. And just, that's your beard now, okay? Now, I want you to go and I want you to gob off to this queen and just do your Nicolas Cage thing with the crazy eyes and the weird inflections, strange way of talking. Gold. Cinema gold.
And it's always a sequel.
Or a reboot.
I don't think you need to do a reboot of this one.
But I will. 10 years from now, we'll be discussing the reboot.
So, that kind of leaves us with one last question. Obviously ties into the very reason why we're here. The Last Witch Hunter. It is a movie, but Sam, is it very movie?
I don't recognise that scale of marking something.
No, come on. Is it very movie?
No, it's not very
It's
movie.
not very movie. Okay. What about you, Fraser? Is The Last Witch Hunter very movie?
Quite honestly, you haven't been able to convince me of any of the merits of this film so far, so it's still about 5 no's, as I said at the start. It's just no. No.
Fraser gives it 5 no's.
Well, I'm cool. Yeah, I think The Last Witch Hunter is very movie. So, overall, our first film for the podcast is a no. It's not very movie overall, but we shall see. So, next week, I am picking the film. Would you like to know what film we're watching?
Please.
Hesitantly.
So, as you know, the close contender was Gods of Egypt, but I feel like that might be on the same level of quality as this film, so I thought I'd give us a break. So, for the next podcast, we will be watching The Last Airbender.
I have not seen that yet.
M. Night Shyamalan's seminal masterpiece, the masterclass on how to work with child actors.
I will not be attending.
You will be attending because you live here, so you will absolutely be attending. So that's what we're going to watch next week. Thank you to everyone who's listening, if anyone, and we will see you next time, or you'll hear us next time. As always, you can find we have a Twitter, which is @VeryMoviePodcast, I believe, possibly incorrect. And this will be up on SoundCloud and YouTube. You can find more stuff on the social medias, and we'll catch you later.
Bye.
Bye.
That's pathetic.
Ma.
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 Oh dear.